Hey everyone, it's Rachel at From Moments to Milestones, and I'm here today with our latest paper pad card class. We made 5 cards this time featuring the Carta Seashore 6x6 Mega Pad. So we're going to make these 5 cards. And if you purchase a kit, you get the instructions, you get the pre-cut kits for each card, and then you also get the remainder of the 6x6 pad I used to cut the kits. So you could create these cards again or lots of other projects, I'm sure. So one other thing we're going to need before we get started, I use Distress Oxide inks to color a lot of my die cuts. These are the colors I use: Stormy Sky, Pumice Stone, Weathered Wood, Fired Brick, and Speckled Egg. And I also use some Scorched Timber Distress ink, not the oxide, just the Distress. So I'm going to grab that out real quick because I do not have that one out. All right, so here's the little mini cube I'm going to use, Scorched Timber. So I've got those things out, so we're ready to get started. So this is our first kit here, a tray to dump into. All right, let's start with coloring up some of our images. So we have a seashell. So we have a white piece and a solid piece and a detail piece. And we're going to use the speckled egg on that. So I'm just using a finger dauber, and I am going to fully cover this solid piece. And then on this detail piece, I'm just going to come in and slowly lighten up as I get to the top. That's a delicate die cut, so you have to be gentle with that. And then we're going to layer that on top. It'll look just like that. A little bit more blue. Okay. We'll let those dry before we glue them together. So I'll just set those aside. And then we're going to do the sand dollar, and I use pumice stone for that. I'm going to clean up my surface here. We're going to grab the pumice stone. And the same thing, completely coloring or covering the solid image. And then on this one, I'm just going to go around the edges. Just like that. And then finally, well, not finally, we also have the red, but we have this blue seashell. So we already have a solid blue. So we're going to glue that to that. And then you have this little sliver piece here. And that is going to go right here, kind of like the opening of the shell. So I'll glue those together. And then I did take just a little bit of the Stormy Sky, and I just went on the one side. So I'm just going to do that now. I just went on this side that doesn't have that little strip on it. Like that. Okay. And then for everything else, we didn't use any ink, so we'll just layer them up. Some glue. I'll go ahead and start with this little strip of blue here. And then this piece will go right on top. And then the red, we just got to find, oh, look at that, fit just perfect. So we just got to put that on. Oh, I had it, there it is. Right, there's the starfish. Do the scallop shell. And then we're going to finish with the sand dollar. Let's just match it up here. There it is. All right. All right, so now let's go ahead and create our bag. So this part goes on the bottom, and these are the handles. So I'm going to start with the handles because you want them to line up with the bottom of your bag, and it'd be easier to match this part up and trim if you need to. I speak from experience. The first time I put the bottom on and then I couldn't get this part to match. So I'm trying to make sure it's straight, using those lines in the paper as a guide. All right, so that's on there. You can see I have a little bit of showing. I'm just going to trim that off. And then that piece is going to go just like so. You can see how I got it a little crooked. So I'm just going to pull it up so it matches, and I can trim off that edge. No big deal. Nobody's going to know. All right, so I've got that on. I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off where I need to. All right, so there's that part of the bag, and then this tucks right inside. It's like the pocket. There's that piece. All right, so all those pieces are ready. Let's go to our base here. So we have this gray, blue on one side, gray on the other. So I'm going to put down the gray. And you'll have a very thin white border. My card's open the right way. And then we're going to put this blue paper down. And actually, I probably should have put that down first because it's ever so slightly bigger. Or I'm just going to make mine span the whole bottom. That's fine. I could cut it down too. It probably needs cut down, but I should have put that on first. Okay. And then that piece is going to go there, and we're going to tuck all the stuff in. So I am actually going to start with the towels. And I have one tucked behind, and both of them are tucked behind, but one is kind of up in front and one is in the back. So I'm going to get them the way I like them. Okay, and then I'm just going to glue them together and stick them to the back of the bag. So now they're on there, one flush piece. And then the other part will be, we have the blue shell and the sand dollar. So the blue shell is over like so, and the sand dollar. So if you get those the way you want them, I'm going to go ahead and glue those in as well. All right, so now we're one flush piece. I'm going to flip it over and put some foam on the back. Now I am not going to put any foam on this one that's behind. This one's going to get glued straight, and I will pop up everything else. I actually think I might have glued those straight down, but that's okay. They're glued to the back of the bag now at this point. So I'm going to pop up everything but that. And I'm going to put 2 pieces on that towel because I want it to stick out farther than look like it's popping out of the bag. So a double layer on that front towel. And then I'll put some wet glue there. And just gonna get this. I'm gonna leave room for some of these images down there. Make sure the towel, make sure it's centered. Okay. Great. Good. And then we have the shell down here. And I did not pop those up. You certainly could if you wanted. So I'm just gonna put some glue on there. And then this flower, you have a large one up here and a smaller one down there. I'm going to put a little piece of foam on that little one. Put it there. And then on the Post-it, I didn't pop this one up, so I'm just going to glue that down. So, and then we have 2 flower centers to finish this off. And we've got that card all done. All right, our next card is See You Soon. Some very little bitty pieces in here. So let's start. We got a lot of little images to color, so we can start with that. So we won't use these for now. So we've got the buoy and the seagull. Got 2 shells, and each shell should have a bottom square, like a little, not a square, like a little rectangle. So these 2 pieces make the shell. We've got seagull wing, body, and then like his feet and his beak are here. These 4 strips are the rope for our little post here. And then you've got the pieces for the buoy. So you also have an itty bitty scrap of this wood paper, and it's for behind the eye of the seagull. So I'm going to leave that here so I don't lose it. And let's start with the shells. Those seem easiest. I have one out of Stormy Sky. I'm going to do both pieces. We'll let those dry and then we'll glue them together. And then the other one is from the Fired Brick. Okay, and then these 4 little pieces from the buoy. I'm actually going to cut. This is just kind of like Post-it. It's not Post-it tape, but it's like a similar version. And I'm going to flip them over because they're upside down. I want the smooth side up. And then they can't really move on me. And I'm going to do those in the Fired Brick as well. those aside to dry. All right, so that can stay white. We have our little, let's work on seagulls. So I'm going to cut apart those. I'm going to flip over his little legs and his beak, and we're going to color those with the scorched, oops, sorry, the scorched timber, I believe. So I'm just gonna, and the body part you're not really gonna see. We're gonna glue it to behind. So I'm gonna get his beak. And then with the pumice stone, I'm gonna just do his wing. I'm gonna completely cover that, and then I'm going to pick him up maybe. And I'm just gonna get the bottom, kind of into his tail, the bottom of his body and up to his tail. Just like that. And then I got to come back in with that scorched timber on his tail and just add a little, like so. That is how I got that color for the seagull. We'll put them all together here in a second after they dry. And then finally we have the wood post. Now this little piece here is the top of the wood post. So I did those in scorched timber as well. And then for the rope, I'm going to flip those over. I only use 3 of them. The die cuts 4. You can use 4 if you want. But I flipped them over, and I'm just going to take pumice stone on the edges and leave it like that. All right. One last thing while we've got our ink out. You're going to take this piece here. Oops, I did forget 2 things. You need this and this. So this I completely covered with pumice stone. So let's do that. All right, so that piece. And then for this, we're going to ink the edges again with that scorched timber. I'm going to come around the edges with the dauber. So we're all done with the inking. So now we need to layer these images together. So on that, I'm not sure if the light's picking it up, but there are little like score marks on there. And that's for you to know where to put the little buoy inserts. So I'm just going to, let me find some tweezers. I'm going to pick up a piece. I'm going to go right there. All right, so there's the buoy. And then for the shells, the same thing. If you can see it or not, but here and here, there's 2 little angled like score marks, and that is where the shell fits on. So I'm going to put some glue here in the center. And then put that shell right on top like so. There's one shell. Repeat that for the second. right. And for the bird, so this itty bitty piece here, I'm going to flip him over and just put some glue there. I'm going to try to cut a little piece that I won't have to trim down. Looks pretty good. I can see just a little. So just trim that off. So now his eye is filled in. And then for his legs, I'm going to put some glue here. And sit him right on top. And then we have his wing and his beak. An itty bitty beak. He's cute. He's got lots of little pieces, but he is cute. I can get that to flip over. There we go. There he is. He's so sweet. And we'll finish with the post. So it also has a deboss line on one of them. I can see it on the side. So a little glue there. And then we're going to put the ropes on. So I'm just going to put some lines to put those on. And they do kind of hang off the side, so it kind of appears that they're wrapped around. You can trim them down if you want. I left them. Oops. All right, so there is my post. And you can use that fourth one if you want. And now we are going to put the card together. So I'm going to start, put all these little pieces in here. Okay, let's start with putting the wood paper on the card base. Okay. And then the circle goes down about a ½ inch from the top or so. Center left to right. So then you have this piece. This piece fits right inside. So I'm not going to glue this one on yet. I'm just going to use it as a placeholder. So get it centered. And then I'm going to put glue on the sailboat paper. And just tuck that in. The sailboat should be straight though. Okay. And then this little piece of water is going to go right at the bottom. All right, and then what I'm going to do here before I glue this down is I want to tuck in this little tail because I'm going to try to cover up that seam just like so. And I have it sticking out of the porthole. But you can either trim that and it's going to be hidden behind some of that, or what I'm going to do is just tuck it behind. I'm going to trim some of it off. A little more. And I'm going to go ahead and glue it to the porthole. And now I can go ahead and put this piece on. So I'm just going to add glue. And I'll just put it on where it covers that seam the way I want it to. Perfect. All right, so now you have that. I did put a little piece of foam here if you want to lift that wave up, or you can glue it down. Hopefully that's not too big of a piece. Go. All right. So now to lay up our other things. So we have the post in here, and we have a red and the blue shells. Buoys back in here. And the see you soon. So that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and reach in and glue some of this stuff down. I did pop up this front shell, so I'm going to wait on that. See you soon. Oh no, maybe I didn't. I popped up the sentiment. So let's go ahead and glue that down. There's lots of layers here, so it just kind of looks like it's still popped up. So I'm going to put foam on that. Go ahead and just put that where we want it. And we're finished with our little bird just standing on top of that post. And I did put foam. I just put foam on his body, and then I'm going to glue his feet down. Okay, so I have foam on his body and his head, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of his feet. Have him standing on that. All right. And that card is finished. Okay, our next card is Clossum. Yes, you are. And this one also has lots of little pieces. So let's see. You should have all these. You got the postage stamp, and then you've got vellum stamps that go on top of this paper. So I'm going to pull all those, put them together. Okay, and the sentiment we don't need now. So let's pull out our crabs. So we should have a large and a small crab. And these are the eyes. You should have the white ones, and then these are navy blue on the back. Flip those over. They're gray on one side, navy blue on the other. You don't need the flowers or the shells right now. These are flower centers, shell. All right, so we want the shells and the claws. We're going to match those up. Okay, and then we're going to need the weathered wood oxide ink, and we're going to add some ink to these. And I kind of went heavy on the bottom and just went lighter as I went towards the top. Kind of give it a little highlight. So we're going to do that to both of the shells. And then I'm going to do that same thing to the claws. So kind of on the bottom. All right, so that's it for the inking on this one. Clean that up. Okay, and let's go ahead and layer those on. All right, so our little, whoops, a little crooked. Our little crab is together, so let's go ahead and layer out the eyes. So we're going to put the white pieces down first so that the white shows through those little holes. So the two larger ones for the larger crab. Two for the smaller. Right. And we're going to put on those dark pieces. Now they do have little holes for the eyes, and you might want to be mindful about where those holes are. I have mine, I think these holes are going towards the center. And the same thing here. I have them both going towards the center. You don't want them looking one way or the other. All right, so there's our crabs. They're so cute. And then we've got some floral images to layer up. So you have, let's see, you have two dark blue or one dark blue and two light blue flowers, and you have flower centers. So this piece here with the leaf already, we're going to put this, it should match up right on top, but I am going to pop that up. Like so, and then we'll put flower centers on. Okay. Then we are ready to put the card, or let's put all these pieces in because we won't need those just yet, but they're ready to go. So now we can work on this part. So what we're going to need, let's just get first we're going to match up I have the small one in the top left corner. And we're going to start matching up the seashells. So if it helps while trying to figure out where they go, all the seashells in this print were all facing the same direction. So if I'm trying to put one here and it's not looking, see how these are facing different directions, it may be helpful to line them up. So like this one goes like this. One goes there and there. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. All right. And now I have pieces I cut out of vellum. This is a beautiful pattern paper, but it's very busy to put things on top of. So we're going to cover up each section with vellum. And the way to hide the adhesive is to only put adhesive on the light colored images. So like this little starfish, the shell, there's the starfish, the buoy, even the light green crab. And you're just going to lightly put this on top. And it doesn't have to be glued completely down. We're going to put things on top. Now, if you have a bunch of oozing, you can see here on my sample, I put too much on that starfish and you have a...
Well, it looks like my audio cut off, so I'm going to finish this video with a voiceover. What I was saying is if you put too much glue on the dark areas of the pattern paper and it oozes out, when it dries, you're going to see those dark spots. So just be mindful of how much glue you're putting on there. So I went ahead and put all those vellum pieces down. You see one missing. I'm going to cut it and add it later. But for now, I'm going to add that blue paper to the white card base. And then we're going to add that large postage collage stamp. You can pop it up if you want to. I'm going to glue it straight down because I'm going to pop up those elements on top. I did tilt mine slightly. You could put it on straight if you wanted to. I did put foam on the back of both of the crabs, and I'm going to put foam on the sentiment as well. There are 3 shells in your kit. You have 2 red and a blue, and each crab is going to be holding some of those shells. So the smaller crab is holding a red shell in his right claw, and then the larger one I've got a blue, and then I'm going to tuck a red in later. I'm going to glue that blue one into his claw, and I'm just adding those now so that I kind of have an idea of where they're going to be when I place down the crabs. That way they're not hanging off the card. So here I'm just putting foam on the left side of that sentiment because he's going to slightly overlap the smaller crab. So I'm going to place that large crab, and then I believe I'm going to put down the sentiment. Yes, and now I'm going to tuck in that second seashell in the larger crab. I'm going to put some foam on the back so it is at the same level as everything else. I don't like that placement. I'm going to pick it up and move it over so it looks like he's actually holding both. And then I'm going to glue that blue one to the red one. Now we are going to finish with the flower embellishments. I'm going to put that larger arrangement up there with a small light blue flower, and then the other light blue flower is going to go at the bottom, and you have 2 green leaves here. Now in my sample I only have 1, but the die is actually 2 leaves and it cuts 2 at a time, so I just gave you both. I like the placement there. I'm going to pick them both up with my tweezers and add some glue and stick those down. I didn't pop these flowers up. I'm just noting there that I do have a dark spot from using too much glue, but lucky for me, it's going to be hitting behind those flowers I'm placing. I've got a leaf that didn't stay on, so I'm going to add that back in. And that should finish off this card. Our next card is Smooth Sailing. I believe that sentiment strip says another year older, still making waves. We're going to start by adding that embossed blue panel to the white card base. You will have a thin white border. And then you have this light blue arch, and then there is a dark blue strip which has the same detail on the edge as the arch. It's cut from the arch, but just the bottom. So you're going to line that up at the bottom and stick that on. And then before I glue down that arch, I'm going to add these waves, and you will see why here in a second. I'm going to layer one on top of the other with the front one pulled over more to the right, and then I'm going to snip off those long pointy edges of the waves, and then I'm going to glue those two pieces together. So I'm just getting a little glue right there, and then you're going to see me pull up that front wave a little bit because I do want to add foam. I did add foam there. So once I get them where I want them, I'm going to place them onto that arch, and I'm just going to lay them right on top of that dark blue, the top of the dark blue paper to kind of hide it. So I'm just going to add glue to the back wave, and I'm just going to put it on there and get it just how I want it. I want to completely cover the line, but I don't want to see any of the light blue. And when I get it where I want it, I'm going to just snip off that little skinny edge on the right side there. And then I'm going to add that foam to that front wave just for a little dimension. And now I believe I'm going to glue that panel onto the onto the card. And now for the bottom of the sailboat. I did slightly tuck it behind that back wave. If you didn't glue it down, didn't use too much glue, you should be able to tuck it in. If not, you could also tuck it in between the two waves since you have one popped up. Or you can just sit it on top. It'll be fine either way. The sentiment's going to cover that anyway. And now for that wooden, I believe it's a mast, I want to say, but I'm not sure. But this part of the sailboat that holds the sails, kind of an upside down cross, we're going to glue that on and attach it to the center of the boat. I'm going to try to tuck it in behind. I can, so there we go. And then we're going to add the two sails. I am going to put foam on the back of both of them. And you do want to make sure when you're lining them up that the straight part of the bottom of the sail lines up with the straight part of that cross. And now here, I wanted to pull in some white because the sentiments are white, the edge of the card. So I'm taking a white gel pen and I'm putting little white dots in the center of those. Actually, on that red paper, they're little tiny captain's wheels. So I'm just putting a white dot in the center of those just to pull in some white to the design. And now I'm ready to add the sentiments. So I'm going to pop both of them up, the smooth sailing as well as that sentiment strip. Now, if you don't want this to be a birthday card, You could take off that sentiment strip. Maybe it could be an encouragement card or a card of another kind. I'm going to put that sentiment right there, making sure it's straight. And then this strip is going to go at the bottom. I have the sentiment stamped on both sides. I believe one of them did not look so great, so I stamped it again. But yeah, I'm going to put foam on and just add it to the bottom. You're going to see in the sample, you can see the blue below the sentiment strip. I kind of didn't leave myself enough room. So I'm just going to pull that down a little bit. So now you can kind of see both variations and choose which placement you like best. And that card is finished. We are on to our last card, Anchored in Hope. And not a lot of inking here, but I am going to ink the anchor with a timbered, or what, a scorched timber, distress ink. And then you have that starfish. I think I'm just going to use whatever is left on, I'm thinking it's the weathered wood. I think speckled egg would work here too. And then I'm going to layer that detail piece on top of the solid piece. All right, so the inking is all down. We're ready to kind of start assembling our card. We're going to put down that light brown paper with anchors on it onto the white card base. And then you have a piece of, this is fawn cardstock from Spellbinder. So it's a kind of darker craft color. That's going to go in the center of the card. And then we have left this white embossed panel and this strip of light blue paper with waves on it. We're just going to rip or tear that blue paper. I'm going to pull it towards me so I get a white edge. And that's going to go at the bottom of that embossed panel. I'm going to look at it. I think I want it to not be as thick on that side, so I'm going to rip a little more off, get it the way I want it, and then I'm going to glue it down. And then I will trim off the excess with a long pair of scissors. And then that panel is going to go in the center of that darker craft cardstock panel. All right, so we are ready to kind of assemble the rest of the card. So I'm going to grab that anchor. And it's here I'm realizing I do not have the crochet thread in my kit. I made this video in my home desk, and I left the rhinestones for my flowers as well as the crochet thread at home. So I'm just going to glue this down anyway. I'm not going to put any glue on the circle part of that anchor, so I can go back and add that at a later time. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop up that sentiment and add it as well. And now I'm going to take the flowers and the greenery and just arrange them on the anchor where I want them. So I'm just going to put everything down, tucking them in where I want them. And then once I have them where I want them, I'm just going to take my glue and just go in behind each die cut and glue them down. Now, my 3 flowers I did pop up on foam. You'll see me do that here in a minute. But I'm going to grab my glue and go ahead and start gluing those items down. Now they are all stuck down. I have foam on the back of all 3 flowers, and I'm going to put them where I want them. And then finally we have that starfish. So I'm going to add that. I'm talking again about my crochet thread and the rhinestones, which I don't have. But I'm just going to get the starfish where I want it, and then I'm going to glue him straight down. I didn't pop him up at all. And you put your rhinestones on, and that card is finished. That does it for this card class. I hope you enjoyed these Seashore cards using the Mega Pad from Carta. If you have any questions, you can leave them below and I'll do my best to answer. You can order a kit from our website. I will leave the link in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.